Roman Travers, Magic Talk.
Well, Tanya Unkovich is a wonderful woman. She's very generous and she's a wonderful baker. I know because she's given me lots of Christmas cake in recent times, and she's a wonderful life coach as well, joining me here on the Sunday Cafe. G'day, Tanya.
Hi, how are you this morning?
Well, I'm actually quite sad to be... I mean, I didn't know Larry King. He would have walked over me if I was lying on the footpath. But why is it that we have that connection to celebrities when they pass away?
Well, we feel as though we know them personally, don't we? And in our age group, we've probably grown up watching people like Larry King, Oprah Winfrey, and all of these people who are now getting older. They're passing on. We've got a bond with them. And even though it's a one-way bond, we still feel this nostalgia and grief when they die. So it's a very normal thing for us to all collectively grieve when a celebrity or someone who is well-known dies.
Okay, well, let's go back into grief itself. It's often very complicated, very personal and different from person to person. What do you see in the work that you're doing?
Well, grief, I often say, is like a fingerprint. It's very different for us all. We all respond in different ways. Some people are okay to openly weep and cry and show their grief. Others don't want to, and they squash it down. But the way it manifests is through anger and blame and that sort of thing. And quite often when you allow those feelings to come up, you discover that what was really hidden was just pain. And this is one of the things I notice a lot with my clients. No matter what they present with, is underneath so much of that surface issue is just grief.
You can't really prepare for it. You think you can, and when you're the parent to young children, you kind of talk to them about a dog or a cat that might be getting sick or a grandparent that's getting on, but it's not something you can... Or is it? I should ask you, can I prepare for grief?
One of the things that I often talk about is how grief is a part of life. And instead of being something that we run from, it's about actually teaching even our children as we're growing up that grief is a part of life, but that also happiness is a part of life and joy is a part of life. And it is about knowing how to live with both, that even if we are grieving, it is still okay to live and be alive as well as grieve. So, there are so many different cultures who grieve so beautifully, don't they? And it's actually part of their upbringing. And this is why I think it would be such a wonderful thing if we could all do that and teach our youth and embrace grief, especially at this time with COVID, because there is so much grief going around relating to COVID that we're all going to know someone soon who has gone to COVID. And it doesn't just pick the elderly, it picks people who are healthy and fit, and then before you know it, they're either gone or their health has changed for good.
Yeah, particularly with this new 70% more contagious strain too, that's going to be a real eye-opener. Bit of a tangent here, but I wish they'd just close the borders and just wait till we have some sort of level of vaccination going on. But what makes COVID-related grief so different and more difficult to treat?
Well, the thing is that it is often something that is unexpected because, someone's walking around, they're healthy 1 minute and then, oh my goodness, they've got COVID. And then before you know it, it can turn very quickly. And whether they are young or whether they are old, they can end up on a ventilator and gone. So it is quite sudden, often, and unexpected. And that makes it a bit more complicated. When someone dies suddenly, there's that shock and you don't have that completion. And, the thing is, we can't be with our loved ones when we're dying as well. They can't touch us and we can't touch them. So this need to be able to be beside your loved one while they are passing away, it's not only beautiful for them, but it's also beautiful for you, and it's part of the healing process. As humans, we can't do that. That's been taken away from us, and I can't imagine anything worse than losing a loved one to COVID and not being beside them.
Just listening to you talking about that, that's entirely accurate. They're often isolated completely, but in some ways, some of the things we've been living with, watching loved ones die of things like dementia-related diseases, where they've actually gone, in some ways, a long time ago. And some people have had that grieving process going on for years and years, right? So how is that any different, do you think, Tanya?
Well, COVID comes very quickly, though, doesn't it? So it's not over a period of years and years. It could only just be weeks. So there is that difference. And, my parents are in that dementia state as well, and I've been grieving for a couple of years now. So it is very different to all of a sudden losing someone to COVID. And, a week is very different to a year. So
tough.
It's just too fast. It's too sudden.
Yeah, isn't it tough? You know firsthand watching someone that's been a rock and a bastion for you just slowly slipping away. That's tough, isn't it?
It's really horrible because they are both such resilient people, and this is probably how we all view our own parents. Once upon a time, they were strong. They were in their 20s. They were in their 30s strong. They were our rocks. And now the cycle of life is such that we are nursing them. And it's both beautiful and sad, but it's about also being able to stay present with that process, that cycle. Embrace the pain. I'm embracing the pain of watching my parents, but I'm also grateful that I've got the opportunity to do that. They're in their 80s. A lot of people are losing young, healthy people to COVID right now, and that's very quick. So, there's quite a difference. It's about being able to sit with the grief, no matter what it is or how it is that someone near you is passing. Do what you can to be with the grief, because if you don't resolve the grief, if you don't allow the grief, it does manifest later on in your life somehow. It does, yeah.
So Tanya Unkovich with me here on the Sunday Cafe, life coach extraordinaire. How does anyone begin that healing process from a COVID-related grief? You've said to live with it, to let it be there, but that sounds easier said than done.
Well, most definitely get some assistance if you can, because it is a very different type of grief, as I've already mentioned. So do what you can to get the right help to be able to process the shock, the trauma, because you would have gone through trauma. And often once your loved one is gone, then the real grief doesn't really show up until you come out of the haze 3 or 4 or 5 months later, and the reality of what has happened has hit you.
Yeah.
So allow the grief, but also sometime you need to make the decision, an intentional decision to live again and to move forward with your life. That is for all of us who have been through grief.
Tanya, how do people catch up with you? How do they find you on the internet?
Anywhere. Just put my name in, Google me, and you'll find me all over social media as well.
Thank you so much, and a very happy new year to you and your family as well.